All right, now this is one of the favorite interviews that I'm going to do because I get to interview one of my former coaches, even though I was a little minion when we were together with the Green Bay Packers. I was down there kind of working with the practice guys and all of that. But Steve Mariucci, Mooch.
Bucky, we were all minions. We were all minions together. That was a fun time when we were still cutting our teeth.
Coach, like to think about that coaching staff, the one that you were on, John Gruden, Andy Reid, you were there when Dick Duran and Ray Rose and all those guys were there. Before we start, just talk about that crucible of talent, coaching talent, and what you guys learned from one another and what you ultimately learned from Coach Holmgren.
We didn't know we were talent. We just were young kids that were just happy to get a job in the NFL. It was like, oh my God, where are we? I remember the first night we got hired, and there were some like courtesy cars waiting for us at the hotel, and it was cold, and somebody just dropped off the cars for us, and the keys were in the car, and the cars had their heaters on just so they'd be nice and warm for us, and they were probably sitting there for 2 hours getting warm for us with the keys in them. That's Green Bay, Wisconsin. Did I ever tell you the first time I met Andy Reid? Did you stay at the Midway Motor Lodge? That was
the Midway. Okay. That's where everyone stayed, Coach. That's where we all stayed at.
Yeah, so we were both there, just kind of coming in, and we had our wives with us because it was a house hunting trip. I didn't know he was there. He didn't know I was there, but we knew we got hired. But all of a sudden, at the Midway Motor Lodge, the fire alarm started going off. It's like at midnight. It's like January midnight. It's like, you just got to. I hope it's not a fire. It's probably not. But you just wait for that alarm to go off. Anyway, it wouldn't go off. So eventually, I stuck my head out the door and looked down the hall. There's this big red head coming out of another door, looking at me. And he goes, "Mariucci." I went, "Reid." He goes, "Yeah, how you doing?" We went out and shook hands with. We had our underwear on. And then that's how we first met. Said, "Hey, my wife's here too. Your wife. Hey, let's have a meet and greet." And so, that's how we first met, with a fire alarm in our underwear.
Hey, Coach, that's a great story. And I've heard you tell great stories about being in those offices with Gruden and Andy Reid. And we all know when you deal with Coach Holmgren loves quarterbacks. And I think it's a common denominator that all of you guys were able to go on and develop quarterbacks. What's the secret sauce to developing quarterbacks, whether they're young or old?
Find a quarterback that's got some talent. And I had the dubious distinction of coaching Brett Favre and the quarterback. And Mike Holmgren, Bucky, as you know, had come from San Francisco, and he only had Steve Young and Joe Montana. So he was not spoiled and with high expectations. He didn't care if it was Brett or TJ Rubley or whoever was playing. They better be great, or your quarterback coach's butt is in trouble. And so I got yelled at more than any 10 coaches on that staff combined. But he expected those guys to be Steve Young and Joe Montana like tomorrow. And so, and Brett Favre was, if he were a horse, he'd be like a bucking bronco. He's like a wild guy. I mean, you know him when he came from Atlanta. He redshirted in Atlanta, right? Threw 5 passes. But he was just this tough, funny, fearless kind of gunslinger, as you know. And he was not going to be Joe Montana. He was not going to be a pretty guy where you'd film him and then you'd do training tapes, because he would do some things crazy. But anyway, Mike Holmgren would make sure that somehow, some way, with their skill sets, they would be productive. And of course, he did that with Brett and a lot of others.
You know, Coach, so you talk about that. So you can talk about Coach Holmgren being spoiled, but you were kind of spoiled too with the quarterbacks that you touched. You talk about Brett Favre, and then you go to San Francisco and you have Steve Young. Talk about that experience, because Steve Young was a pretty decorated player already. You go in there. What was the challenge of coaching someone that already has some notable accomplishments on his resume?
Yes, good point, because I got in trouble too when I was a young coach at San Francisco, a young head coach. Somebody asked me to compare the two, just like you just did, Buck. And I made the mistake of saying, I tried to compliment both guys because I love both guys. All right. I got a picture. Where will I show you that picture right there? Anyway, I said, Favre's the toughest guy in the world, blah, blah, blah. And Steve Young's the smartest guy. So then, one guy goes, what? I'm not smart. When the other guy goes, what? I'm not tough. And so it's like you can't win, right? But they were different human beings, different skill sets. One was right-handed, one was left-handed, right? One was from Mississippi, and one was from Connecticut. And but they were both tough as nails, physically and mentally. That's the thing, because there's a lot of different ways to play quarterback in this league. They're all a little different, but similarities were that they just were driven. They're driven to be great. And Favre was, I'm sorry, Steve, Favre was funnier than you were. You're not a funny guy at all. But Favre's crazy. And Steve was the studious kind of guy that would just be, he'd get butterflies before games. I'd have to tell him, settle down, will you? And but they had their own approach, and it was fun.
So Coach, you mentioned something that I don't think many people understand, the challenges or differences between coaching a right-handed quarterback like you had in Favre and then coaching a left-handed quarterback. When you're the head coach and the play caller, what's different about coaching a left-handed quarterback?
Yeah, that's I don't know if I've been blessed or cursed with lefties around me. Okay, I don't know. My wife's left-handed, my mom's left-handed, my daughter's left-handed, my brother's left-handed. Everybody's left-handed. I thought there'd be 50% of the world left-handed, right-handed. Doesn't that make sense genetically? No. And then same with quarterbacks. We haven't had a guy in the league play left-handed quarterback in years. It's like, where are all the lefties going? I had Steve Young, and then I had Mark Brunell over there in Green Bay when we were together. And it is a challenge. In fact, one year after the season was over, I told Steve, I said, listen, I want you to work on going right-handed this offseason, okay? So I don't have to flip every play over just for you. And if your backup is left-handed, like Brunell was, okay? You remember when Favre was starting, and then we had two backups. We had Ty Dittmer and Mark Brunell. Loved them both. I mean, love these guys. And we couldn't decide who should be the backup and who should be the third guy who's inactive. So what we did, we alternated just to keep them both happy. We alternated, but that messes you up because when you're on the goal line, you don't run past 64 corner quarterback, one way, and then you got to practice the other way for the left-handers that you do sprint right option, sprint left option. You got to flip your play action and movements, and that's a third of your package, maybe more. And you simply have to flip them over right and left if you're right-handed or left-handed. So it creates a little bit of a practice issue, and for everybody, not just for the quarterback. And so the ball spins different. It's different for the receiver. It's just like a left-footed punter. Left-footed punters are hard to catch.
Yeah,
you ever returned punts? You did. Yeah, and the ball spins wrong. And so same with a quarterback throwing left-handed. The ball spins just the opposite way.
Coach, it's funny that you mentioned that because from a play calling perspective, like I don't know if people really understand that because most play callers are right-handed because your quarterback are right-handed, meaning you run the ball primarily to the right. Your primary pass catchers may be on the right, depending on how you set your formations. Then with the lefty, you have to completely flip that. So in your preparation process, like how much does that linger? How much does that play into how you build out your game plan and those things with a left-hander?
Absolutely. It's your game plan. It's like I said, though, it's not as much in the drop back passing game. All right. When you go straight back, you ought to be able to throw front side or backside, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. Right. But it's the play action game and it's the movement and keep game. Like I mentioned, sprint right option. That's the famous play that Joe Montana hit Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone to beat the Cowboys, all right? Jerry Rice scored 33 touchdowns on sprint right option, okay? And Favre threw him one in the Pro Bowl. But you would only throw that to the right with Brett Favre, and you would only throw it to the left with Steve. Except one time Brett Favre audibled to Q9. And Mike Holmgren going left, he yelled at me for about a half of that game because we never practiced that, but he just did it against the Broncos. It's like, Brett, what are you doing? I don't know. And so that's where the big difference is in game planning is your play action movements and keeps. You gotta Yeah, it'd be great that everybody can go right and left equally. That's not the case, though.
No, it's not the case. So it's funny you talk about those quarterbacks. And you had Brett when he was young. And so, Coach, now that we're dealing with a different offseason, a different training camp because of the pandemic, you haven't had the full offseason to work. How challenging would it be to develop a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback, in situations like this?
You know, I feel bad for Zach Taylor over there at the Bengals because they've committed to Joe Burrow, right? They have a young pitching staff. They're all young, so it's just pick your poison. They're all kids, right? And so you got to choose one of them. So Joe is trying to play catch up and learn their offense and learn about pro defenses on the run without any mini camps or any OTAs. We used to have quarterback school in March. Players don't even think about football in March these days. Mm-hmm. The quarterbacks were in for a full month before anybody else, going over everything. And the offseason has been condensed, even if we weren't in a pandemic. But now the pandemic has wiped out, I don't want to say all of it, because they did some good stuff on the Zoom calls. They really did. They figured out a way to teach, like universities and schools have to figure out a way to teach. Is it perfect? No, but it's pretty good. But the thing you miss is on the field. This is a sport. It's a contact sport that requires you to be on the grass and throw and run and rhythm up in the passing game with your teammates. That was eliminated for the most part. But guys like Tua and guys like Justin Herbert, Jordan Love's going to watch for a while, but they have the benefit of saying, okay, I don't have any pressure on me right now to start day one. I can watch. I can see how this works. I can see how we prepare. And even though they were good in college, it's different. You know that. It's just different. So Joe Burrow has got a lot of pressure on him to play well early. Really, I don't want to say underprepared, but I'm going to say underprepared. He's not going to be as good in September as he is in November.
Yeah, it's funny, Coach, because you talk about Joe Burrow and some of the things that the Bengals have talked about is maybe meeting him halfway by using their playbook. In Green Bay, going back to our time together with Mike Holmgren and what you learned from him, I just remember Coach Holmgren always talking about he wanted a quarterback who had athleticism. Well, now in today's game, we're seeing more of these college quarterbacks that are great athletes at the position. Based on your experience, how would you change, or would you change at all if you had one of these young guys like a Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson when it comes to developing them as quarterbacks?
Hey, Buck, you know what Mooch did when he played? He ran the wishbone in high school and ran the Houston Beer in college. I'm an option guy. I love option football. All right. So if I would have had Steve Young at age 28 and not 38, I would have had a lot of zone read stuff too, because I think it's not only fascinating and fun, it's so hard to stop and defend, especially when teams don't see it every week. Okay. So yeah, these new athletic quarterbacks, that's why the Patriots took Cam Newton, because he adds another dimension. He's replacing a six-time Super Bowl winner in Tom Brady, but he played from the pocket, played pretty darn well. But now Cam has got all this other stuff that teams will have to defend. It's going to keep defensive coordinators up all night trying to figure out, how in the world do I play cover two man? I can't, because that guy's going to start running down the field and he's 250 pounds. I can't tackle him. And so, the Lamar Jackson, he might be the hardest guy to tackle in the whole league in the open field. So that adds a real fun dimension. It's a college dimension. I would love it. Now, with that said, these guys, they're hard to find and they are very valuable. So if they get hurt, you're running a risk. I would definitely have I called it a pitching staff earlier, my whole quarterback room like kind. I mean, if one's athletic, I don't want a Joe Flacco as the backup, because that's a whole different offense, isn't it? I want to, if Lamar Jackson gets hurt, I want, whether it's RG3 or whoever that is, to be able to run the same offense, and we're committed to that offense because they're going to get hurt. Cam eventually got hurt. He had the most hits in the league in his first 6 years and eventually got hurt. But that's the risk. You're going to pay a guy $20-30 million a year, and you got to decide, how much do I want to bang this guy up?
it is interesting because when you look at Baltimore has taken your advice and kind of followed that because RG3 is the backup, Trace McSorley is the 3. All of them are athletic enough to do the things that they run on offense. I think it's funny that we're now talking about the shotgun, and we see the shotgun. It's the predominant offense of choice throughout the league. But when we were in Green Bay together, Coach Holmgren hated the shotgun. I was there when we finally convinced him to put it in because Brett wanted to be able to run it in 2 minutes. Why did he hate it so much? Why was it such a problem back then?
Well, because they tried it with Joe Montana in practice, and the ball went over his head, and it was out. Okay, Steve Young never went in shotgun. Okay, never, 0 in shotgun, not in 2 minute, not in any minute. Okay, so when we went to Green Bay, the league was only going in shotgun in a 2 minute drill, right? And a definite passing situation. Brett didn't go into shotgun for his first 8 years, right? I mean, he was the MVP of the league before he went in the shotgun. Now, he told me, I said, Favre, why'd you go to shotgun? It was after I left, way after I left.
Yeah.
Because I went to San Francisco and Steve never went shotgun. It wasn't until Jeff Garcia started. He wanted to be in shotgun. Okay, fine. Anyway, Brett said, I had to get away from Sapp because that Tampa defense was really good. Remember, he and Sapp were always fighting and chawing at each other, and they had a great mutual respect. But he says, I got to get away from that guy. I got to back up a little bit. Just give me another tick with the ball so I can get rid of it. So he can. Yeah, he's going to hit me, but I want to get the ball out. And so I think in year 8, Brett started going a little bit of shotgun. Now the league is over 60% shotgun right now, which is like what? It's you evaluate, for the draft, you evaluate these kids coming out of high school and college. They're not in I formation. They're not in split backs. They're in a 1-back set. They're either in pistol or they're standing right next to the quarterback in shotgun, and their run game repertoire is very limited. They don't run power and counter and lead, all those things. They run a little trap and a little 1-back power, and that's it.
Given that, because in the evaluation process, a lot of the conversation is always, they've been in shotgun, guys haven't been under center, have to teach them. How hard is it to teach a quarterback who has spent most of his playing days in the shotgun to go up under center and to play what I call a traditional quarterback?
Yeah. It's like anything else. You got to practice it. I mean, even back then when we were under center, every single snap, quarterbacks and centers were out early taking snaps from center just so you didn't drop one, right? And stop the practice and get yelled at. And then now you're getting guys who have never done it before. Even growing up in the Pop Warner leagues, I coached the Under Armour All-American high school game, and we had to literally throw away going under the center. It's not like the Pro Bowl. It's like, all right, we're going to run 2 formations, and it's going to be all shotgun. We're never going to, even in
kneel down,
we're not going under there because you're going to fumble the snap because the center never snapped one either. And so it's just becoming a shotgun kind of a game, and which is fortunate or unfortunate. It's the game's changed, Buck. It just really has. And, the NFL takes what's coming to us. We draft who's available. And these kids coming out of these programs have been doing this all of their life. So we're becoming a little more and more like the colleges and a little more like the high schools.
It's funny that you say that, because then when I look at the teams that are having the most success when it comes to running the football and sometimes creating explosive plays, the San Francisco 49ers, the Minnesota Vikings, teams that are running what they would say is the Shanahan system. What you and I would say is, that's things that we used to do in Green Bay. Why is it that those teams that are kind of playing what I call old school football with the outside zone, under center, play action, why does it seem like they have advantages in terms of creating big plays?
Yeah, and the Rams like to run the ball and play action pass, and so I'm just hoping that stays in our league, because half the teams, Buck, don't even have a fullback. A fullback is like a dinosaur. It's like they're gone. I mean, where'd they go? And so some teams are taking defensive linemen, and you just play fullback here and block that guy. So you're right. There's a certain kind of old school mindset that we say, hey, let's be physical and not just fool them. Let's just smash mouth them. Let's just run them over. Let's help our defense by controlling the clock. Those kinds of things. There's a lot of good that comes from. The other thing is when you have, I know this in college too, when you have a good hard-nosed physical offense, your defense gets hardened and gets better by practicing against it and spring ball and everything. You're better able to stop that kind of an offense when you face it. David Shaw has had all kinds of success, running the football over there at Stanford because he's old school that way. And in Seattle, and there's just some teams that just are committed that way. Some are, Cliff Kingsbury over there. He brought that Texas Tech offense over there with Kyler Murray, and they're going to run college stuff. You know what? God bless him. And he's doing a good job. But some teams are going to say, hey, I want to fullback and I want to block you and I want to make a statement. I love that.
All right, Coach. So you brought me to my last question. You kind of you teed it up for me with Cliff Kingsbury. The reports out of Arizona, he's talking about playing with more tempo in practice, more tempo potentially in games. Given the shortened preseason, is it advantageous to maybe think about playing a little faster? Do you think you can create big play opportunities on offense by really playing fast early in the season, given the pandemic?
That sounds like a Chip Kelly offense. Remember that tempo stuff? They had no huddle, ba-boom, ba-boom, go fast, and don't let your defense kind of make all their fancy calls and all these exotic blitzes and coverages. And there was even some teams that were saying, we're not going to huddle. We're not going to huddle in practice because we don't want to breathe on each other. And so we're just going to go fast tempo, no huddle. You get more plays in a practice, right? You get more plays in a game. You kind of minimize what defensive calls can be made when you're going over the ball quickly. So there's some good to it. I've always liked the huddle. I always liked the quarterback looking these guys in the eyes and telling them, let's get out of bounds now. We got to save a timeout. Yeah, that kind of thing. When you that's another thing that we've learned with these college quarterbacks coming up, Buck. Some of them have never been in a huddle. They always look at the sideline and go, oh yeah, thanks for the play. And then everybody runs it. And they've never developed any leadership skills, like telling their team, let's go. And reminding their guys, all right, we can't have any penalties. Got to hang on to the ball. I'll keep the clock run, whatever that is. They have to learn it on the run. So let's just enjoy the game where it's headed. It's headed in shotgun college-like. And let's also enjoy those old school smash mouth teams that are still around and having really good success.
Well, one thing that I know is I always enjoy having a conversation with you, whether it's on the podcast or when we meet in the locker room. It's always great. It's always enlightening. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Mooch.
All right, Bucky. Thanks for having me on. All right. Have a great day.
All right, man. Appreciate it. That was great.
So here's what happened. Can you see this?
We see. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
All right. So I had been coaching him. Then now I'm coaching the 49ers. Okay. So the Niners go visit Bucky Brooks and the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau. Okay. So I'm playing catch with Steve Young. And just to get him warmed up, because he's a left-handed, he's a nervous wreck, and I won't come. Just relax. We're okay. Let's play catch. All of a sudden, balls come flying by me. Boom. So I look back, and he's warming up on the other side, and he's laughing at me. He's going, Mooch, hey, Mooch. And he's trying to hit me with some football. I'm the other coach. I'm the other head coach, and he's trying to kill me with his rocket balls, okay? So then I go, will you stop? He goes, come here, let's take a picture. So we all got together. This is before the game. And Steve is going, I can't believe this is going on. And I'm going, I can't believe this is going on. And Favre, who was it? Vernon Beaver, I think, took this picture. You know Vernon?
Yeah.
He was a photographer for the Packers for, I don't know, 40 years or something like that. But anyway, that's the kind of guy. He was crazy, all right? But these two had so much mutual respect with each other, I can't even tell you. Love them both. I'll never compare them again. Love them both.